Clara Thompson stood in her small kitchen, the morning sun filtering through faded gingham curtains, casting a warm glow on the cracked linoleum floor. At 65, her hands were rough from years of labor, first as a farmer's wife, then as a widow pouring every ounce of her energy into keeping her family's legacy alive. The Thompson farm, 80 acres of wheat and soybeans in rural Butler County, Kansas, had been her late husband Tom's pride, passed down from his grandfather. Since Tom's death 5 years ago, Clara had made it her mission to ensure their son, Ethan, could carry on that legacy. She'd cashed out her modest pension, dipped into Tom's life insurance, and skipped her own needs to pay off Ethan's equipment loans, cover his overdue bills, and buy seed when his budget fell short. Today, like every Wednesday, she packed grocery bags for Ethan's farm, fresh carrots, canned beans, a loaf of her homemade sourdough, and an apple pie baked with the last of her Granny Smiths. It was her ritual, her way of holding the family together. Clara's knees ached as she loaded the bags into her rusty '98 Chevy pickup, the truck's engine coughing before it roared to life. The July heat was already oppressive, the Kansas air thick with the scent of dust and wheat. She drove the 10 miles to Ethan's farm outside El Dorado, her mind drifting to the sacrifices she'd made. No new glasses, despite her blurry vision, no doctor's visits, though her joints screamed, no quilting, her old passion, because every dollar went to Ethan and his wife Melissa. She told herself it was worth it. The farm was their heritage, the heart of their family. Ethan was trying, wasn't he? He was just young, 33, newly married, learning the ropes of a tough business. When she pulled into the farm's gravel driveway, the fields stretched golden under the relentless sun, but the place was eerily quiet. No Ethan tinkering with the tractor, no Melissa tending the vegetable patch. Clara hefted the grocery bags and headed toward the barn, her boots crunching on the dry earth. The barn door was ajar, and inside the air smelled of hay, oil, and something new, polished metal. Her eyes landed on a gleaming silver RV parked in the shadows, its chrome trim sparkling like a mirage. It was brand new, with sleek lines, tinted windows, and a logo that read Thompson Family Farm Outreach. Through an open door, Clara glimpsed leather seats, a flat-screen TV, a mini fridge stocked with bottled water. Her heart thudded. She'd given Ethan $12,000 last month for a new irrigation system. Her savings, scraped together from years of frugality, were nearly gone. Where had this come from? "Mom?" Ethan's voice cut through her shock. He stood at the barn door, his lanky frame silhouetted against the sunlight, his brown hair matted with sweat. Melissa hovered behind him, her blonde ponytail tight, her arms crossed. "Ethan, what's this?" Clara gestured at the RV, her voice steady but edged with steel. Ethan shifted, his eyes darting to the ground. "It's for the farm, Mom. Outreach, you know? We're going to take it to markets, promote our organic produce, build the brand." Clara's grip tightened on the grocery bags. "With what money? I gave you every cent I had for irrigation. You said you needed it to save the crops." Melissa stepped forward, her smile thin, practiced. "Clara, we got a good deal. It's an investment. You always say the farm's our legacy, right? This'll help us grow." The words twisted like a knife, using Clara's own devotion against her. She wanted to believe them, to trust that Ethan was building something real. But the RV's opulence mocked her sacrifices. The skipped doctor's visits, the untouched quilting fabric in her attic, the Colorado vacation she'd dreamed of but never taken. "How much did it cost?" she asked, her voice low. Ethan hesitated. "Does it matter? It's for the business." "It matters when it's my money," Clara snapped, surprising herself with her sharpness. She set the groceries down, her hands trembling. "I want an answer." Melissa's smile faltered. "Clara, you're overreacting. Let's talk inside." But Clara didn't move. She stared at the RV, its shiny surface reflecting her tired face, her graying hair, her worn-out resolve. She turned and walked back to her truck, leaving the groceries in the barn. Ethan called after her, but she didn't look back. The drive home was a blur, the road shimmering through unshed tears. That night, Clara sat at her kitchen table, her ledger open. She'd always been meticulous, tracking every penny. The numbers stared back at her. $45,000 given to Ethan over 3 years, $12,000 for the irrigation system, $8,000 for tractor repairs, $5,000 for seed, $1,000 here, $2,000 there, for bills, groceries, emergencies. Her savings, once $60,000 from Tom's insurance and her pension, were down to $8,000. She'd eaten canned soup for months to stretch her budget, while Ethan and Melissa lived in a house she'd helped pay for, now with a luxury RV parked in their barn. She closed the ledger, her hands steady now, and made a decision. No more. The next morning, Clara's vision blurred as she chopped carrots for her own dinner, a simple meal of soup and bread. Exhaustion hit like a freight train, her knees buckling. She woke in the El Dorado hospital, an IV dripping into her arm, a nurse's voice explaining she'd collapsed from severe dehydration and malnutrition. "You're pushing yourself too hard, Mrs. Thompson," the doctor said, his brow furrowed. "Your blood pressure's high and you're underweight. You need to prioritize your health." Clara nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. In the hospital's sterile quiet, she replayed the RV incident, Ethan's evasive eyes, Melissa's dismissive tone. She thought of the years she'd given, the hobbies she'd abandoned, the life she'd put on hold. When she returned home, her neighbor, Evelyn Carter, dropped by with a casserole. Evelyn, 70, with silver hair and a sharp tongue, was a pillar of the El Dorado quilting circle, a group Clara had joined years ago before Ethan's needs consumed her time. "You look like you've been through hell, Clara," Evelyn said, setting the dish on the counter. "What's going on?" Clara hesitated, then let it all spill. The RV, the $45,000, the years of sacrifice. Evelyn listened, her face hardening with each word. "Clara, you're not their bank. You're their mother. They're grown. It's time they act like it." The words sank in, heavy but true. Clara thought of her attic, filled with bolts of fabric she hadn't touched in years. Quilting had been her joy, her art before Tom's illness and Ethan's struggles took over. She'd made quilts for church raffles, for neighbors' newborns, for Tom's hospital bed. Each stitch had been a piece of her soul. Could she reclaim that? That Sunday, Clara drove to Ethan's farm, expecting to join the family reunion Melissa had mentioned in passing. She'd spent days imagining it. Relatives on the porch, laughter, maybe a chance to feel part of the legacy she'd fought for. She wore her best dress, a soft blue cotton she'd sewn herself, and carried a fresh pie. But when she arrived, the farm was alive with unfamiliar faces. Melissa's parents from Wichita, her cousins, friends Clara didn't know. No one from her side of the family. No cousins from Topeka, no aunts from Oklahoma. The RV was parked proudly by the house, a banner proclaiming Thompson Family Farm Outreach. Ethan spotted her and froze, his beer halfway to his mouth. "Mom, what are you doing here?" His tone was sharp, not welcoming. Clara's throat tightened. "I thought, the reunion." Melissa appeared, her smile forced. "Clara, this was just a small thing, for close family. We didn't want to bother you." Close family. The words cut deeper than any blade. Clara, who'd paid for the farm's survival, who'd baked pies and delivered groceries, wasn't close enough. She saw Melissa's parents laughing by the RV, her cousins toasting with wine, her money, her sacrifice on display for strangers. "I see," Clara said, her voice barely a whisper. She set the pie on a table and drove home, tears blurring the road. That night, Clara made a final decision. She called her bank and canceled the automatic transfer to Ethan's account, a $500 monthly lifeline she'd set up 2 years ago. She changed her online banking passwords and requested a new debit card. She locked her checkbook in a safe. For the first time in years, her money was hers alone. The fallout came swiftly. 3 days later, Ethan and Melissa arrived at her house, unannounced. Ethan's face was red, his voice loud. "Mom, what's this about canceling the transfer? We're behind on the combine loan. The bank's threatening to repossess it." Clara stood in her doorway, arms crossed. "Ethan, I've given you $45,000 in 3 years. I collapsed from exhaustion. I can't keep doing this." Melissa's eyes narrowed. "Clara, you're not thinking straight. You've been under so much stress. Maybe you need help managing things." The implication chilled Clara. "I'm fine, Melissa. I'm just done paying for your RV and your parties." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You're being selfish, Mom. This is about the farm, our legacy." "Your legacy," Clara shot back. "Not mine. I've given enough." They left, but the next week, a letter arrived from a Wichita law firm. Ethan and Melissa were petitioning for a conservatorship, claiming Clara's erratic behavior and financial irresponsibility made her unfit to manage her affairs. They cited her cancellation of the transfers, her isolation from family, and her hospital collapse as evidence of mental decline. Clara's hands shook as she read it. Her own son was trying to strip her of her autonomy, to control her savings, $8,000, all she had left. She called Evelyn, who arrived with the quilting circle. 5 women, all over 60, with fierce eyes and warm hugs. There was Ruth, a retired accountant with a knack for organization; Betty, a former school teacher who knew everyone in town; Louise, a gardener with a soft voice and iron will; Sarah, a nurse who'd seen it all; and Evelyn, the group's unofficial leader. Over coffee, they urged Clara to fight. "You're not alone," Ruth said. "We'll help you prove you're sharper than they are." Ruth suggested Clara revive her quilting, not just for herself, but as a business. "You used to make the most beautiful quilts in Butler County," she said. "Sell them online. Show the world you're not some frail old lady." Clara hesitated. Her last quilt, a half-finished patchwork of sunflowers, sat in the attic, abandoned when Ethan's debts mounted. But the idea sparked something, a flicker of the woman she'd been before Tom's death, before she became Ethan's ATM. That night, she climbed to the attic, her knees protesting each step. The air smelled of dust and memories. She pulled out her sewing machine, its pedal worn from years of use, and sorted through her fabrics. Cottons in blues and yellows, linens in earthy browns. She chose a bold sunflower pattern, Kansas's state flower, and began cutting. The rhythm of scissors and thread calmed her racing heart. Each stitch felt like a reclaiming, a stitching together of her fractured self. Evelyn helped Clara set up an Etsy shop, Clara's Heartland Quilts. Ruth photographed the sunflower quilt, its petals vibrant against a sky blue background. Clara wrote a description: "Handmade with love in Kansas, inspired by the strength of the plains." To her shock, it sold within hours for $200 to a woman in Oregon. Encouraged, Clara made more quilts, wheat fields swaying in gold, starry skies over the prairie, rolling hills in greens and browns. Evelyn's granddaughter Mia, a 20-year-old social media whiz, posted about Clara's story on Instagram. "My neighbor, a 65-year-old widow, poured her life into her son's farm only to be betrayed. Now she's reclaiming her life through her art. Support her quilts." The post included a photo of Clara at her sewing machine, her gray hair pulled back, her eyes bright with purpose. It went viral, shared by thousands, with orders pouring in from California to Maine. Clara's phone buzzed with notifications, customers praising her work, bloggers requesting interviews, even a feature in a Kansas City lifestyle magazine titled "Kansas Quilter Stitches a New Life." Her Etsy shop earned $3,000 in a month, more than her pension. Each sale felt like a brick in the wall she was building around her independence. She bought new glasses, scheduled a doctor's visit, and splurged on a set of premium quilting threads. For the first time in years, she spent money on herself without guilt. Meanwhile, Ethan and Melissa escalated their campaign. A social worker, Miss Larson, arrived for a wellness check, claiming reports of Clara's instability. Clara, prepared by Ruth's advice, invited her in and showed her bank statements, Etsy records, and a letter from her doctor confirming her health.
She walked Miss Larson through her tidy home, pointing out her organized sewing room, her balanced checkbook, her calendar of quilting circle meetings. Miss Larson, my son thinks I'm unstable because I stopped paying his bills. Does that sound unstable to you? Miss Larson's expression softened. Mrs. Thompson, you seem perfectly capable. I'll note that in my report. She left, but Clara knew the conservatorship hearing loomed. She hired a lawyer, Mr. Harold Jenkins, a gruff but kind man in his 50s who specialized in elder law. Clara, he said, reviewing her records, you've got a paper trail that make an accountant cry with joy. They've got no case.
The hearing was set for October in a Wichita courthouse. Clara spent the weeks preparing, her quilting circle by her side. Ruth organized her financial records, showing every dollar given to Ethan, $45,000, meticulously documented in spreadsheets and receipts. Evelyn and the circle wrote affidavits attesting to Clara's clarity and vitality. Her doctor provided a health report, confirming no signs of cognitive decline. Clara's Etsy customers sent testimonials, praising her professionalism and creativity. Mia's Instagram post had sparked a movement, with hashtags like Clara's Stand trending among craft communities. A local TV station ran a segment on Clara, calling her Kansas's quilting warrior. Clara poured her energy into her quilts, each one a statement. She finished a vibrant patchwork of red, white, and blue, symbolizing her fight for freedom. She titled it Liberty's Thread and listed it for $500, donating half the proceeds to a local senior advocacy group. The sale felt like a promise to herself. She would not be silenced. She worked late into the nights, her sewing machine humming, her hands steady despite the ache in her joints. Each quilt was a piece of her story, a testament to her strength. The night before the hearing, Clara sat with the quilting circle, their laughter filling her living room. Betty brought homemade cookies. Louise shared stories of her garden, and Sarah checked Clara's blood pressure, declaring it better than mine. Evelyn raised a glass of iced tea. To Clara, who's showing the world what a 65-year-old woman can do. Clara smiled, her heart full. To all of you, she said, I couldn't do this without you. The next morning, Clara awoke at dawn, the Kansas sky streaked with pink and gold. She put on her best black suit, tailored years ago for Tom's funeral, and looked in the mirror. Her gray hair was neatly braided, her eyes clear and determined. Today wasn't just about winning a case. It was about reclaiming her dignity, her right to live free from abuse, her value beyond her bank account. Mr. Jenkins picked her up at 7 a.m., going over their strategy one last time. Clara, the burden of proof is on them. They have to show you're incompetent. We just need to show you're not. What if the judge is biased? Clara asked, her voice steady but tinged with fear. Judge Miller is fair, Jenkins said. I've researched her cases. She's tough on family disputes, but prioritizes the elderly's rights. They arrived at the Wichita courthouse at 9 a.m. In the hallway, Clara saw Ethan in a new suit, likely bought for the occasion, and Melissa dressed in black, as if mourning. Their eyes met, and Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. Melissa held Clara's gaze, her expression cold, calculating. Their lawyer, Mr. Tate, was an older man with slick-back hair and the confidence of someone used to winning. In the courtroom, Tate opened with a calculated narrative, painting Clara as a confused widow manipulated by, quote, opportunistic neighbors. Mrs. Clara Thompson has shown a clear mental decline. She's cut off financial support for her son's farm without reason, suffered a health crisis due to neglect, and started a reckless online business. Her isolation from family and paranoia, evidenced by excessive spending on security, suggest she needs oversight. Mr. Jenkins cross-examined, his questions sharp. Mrs. Thompson-Schmidt, when did you last call my client without asking for money? Melissa hesitated. We talk about lots of things. A specific date, please? I don't recall exact dates, she stammered. Is it true you excluded my client from a family reunion at the farm she helped fund? It was a small event, Melissa said, her tears drying. And is it true you used $12,000 of her money to buy an RV for outreach while claiming it was for irrigation? Melissa's face reddened. It was an investment.
Ethan testified next, his voice low, rehearsed. Mom's always been generous, but lately she's erratic. She's shutting us out, acting paranoid. We're worried she's being taken advantage of. Jenkins didn't hold back. Mr. Thompson, how much money has your mother given you in 3 years? I don't know exactly, he said. Does $45,000 sound accurate? Maybe she's always been generous. How many times have you visited her without asking for money? Silence. Ethan's face flushed. Is it true you bought a luxury RV with her savings, then excluded her from a family event on the farm she helped save? We were protecting her, he muttered. Jenkins submitted Clara's financial records, showing her meticulous tracking of every dollar given. He called her doctor, who testified to her robust health, noting the collapse was due to overwork, not neglect. Ruth, Evelyn, and the quilting circle took the stand, each describing Clara's transformation. She's not erratic, she's empowered. Her quilts are proof of her clarity and talent. Clara testified last, her voice steady, resonant. Your Honor, I gave my son everything, my money, my health, my dreams, to keep our family farm alive. I thought it was love, but it was a transaction. When I saw that RV, bought with my savings, and learned I wasn't welcome at their reunion, I realized I'd been used. I started my quilt business to reclaim my life. Every stitch is proof I'm not the woman they want you to see. Jenkins presented Clara's Etsy records, $7,000 in sales, 200 5-star reviews, media coverage. Does this look like incompetence? Tate's witnesses, a neighbor who'd seen Clara's odd behavior and a doctor who claimed her hospital visit suggested neglect, faltered under Jenkins' questioning. The neighbor admitted he barely knew Clara. The doctor conceded her health was stable. Judge Miller deliberated for 2 hours, each minute stretching like years. When she returned, her voice was firm. Mrs. Clara Thompson is in full possession of her mental faculties. Her financial decisions are rational, her health is sound, and her business success speaks for itself. The petition for conservatorship is denied. The evidence suggests the plaintiff's motives are financial, not familial. I advise them to reconsider their approach. Clara exhaled, tears pricking her eyes. She'd won. Not just the case, but her dignity, her freedom, herself. Outside, Ethan approached, his face a mix of shame and defiance. Mom, we can fix this. Just talk to us. Clara looked at him, the boy she'd raised, now a stranger. Ethan, I loved you enough to give you everything. You loved my money, not me. I'm done. She walked to the Quilting Circle's van, where Evelyn and the others waited, their faces beaming. That night, they celebrated at Clara's house, toasting with iced tea and homemade pie. To Clara, Evelyn said, who stitched her way to freedom. 3 months later, Clara sold her house and moved to a cozy apartment in El Dorado's town center, closer to her quilting circle. She donated half her Etsy earnings to a senior advocacy group, using the rest to fund a trip to Colorado's mountains, a dream she'd shelved for Ethan. Her quilts gained national attention, featured in craft fairs from Kansas City to Santa Fe. She joined a senior travel group, painting classes, and a volunteer program at the local library. She heard through neighbors that Ethan and Melissa lost the RV to repossession and moved to a smaller rental. The farm struggled, but Clara no longer felt responsible. One spring evening, she hosted her own family reunion, inviting her sister, Louise from Topeka, her cousins from Oklahoma, and the Quilting Circle, her true family. The table groaned with apple pie, laughter, and stories of her quilts, now sold as far as California. A new quilt, Clara's Stand, hung on the wall, a lone sunflower against a storm, its petals bold and unbroken. As the sun set over the Kansas plains, Clara stood on her balcony, the quilt draped over her shoulders. She was 65, a quilter, an artist, a woman reborn. Each stitch, each sail, each new friend was a testament to her strength. She'd lost a son, but found herself, and in the heartland's vast silence, Clara Thompson was finally free.